Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connections, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Back to Basics, Reconnecting to the Essence of You. This episode is part of my special series with the exciting women I'm co-authoring the book called Women in Business Leading the Way. And I have my co-author here, Suzanne O'Brien, who's the founder and CEO of Blake Rian Consulting. Blake Rian Consulting is a certified women-owned company with over 14 years of experience partnering with clients in all industries nationwide. Suzanne, hello and welcome to Back to Basics.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited. I've had some of our Pink Shoe sisters already on the show. So every time I add one of you to this series, I get very excited so that the audience can also get to know you and hopefully check you out in our book.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm so excited to be here.
And so for the audience to gain perspective, Suzanne and I were talking, we are right now in the middle of lockdown for coronavirus. So probably this is going to go out a little bit later, but we've been getting very creative in terms of how to tape the podcast and what each of us is doing. So definitely we all have all these changing times in mind. So Suzanne, and we've spoken about this, and you're not that familiar with the podcast, which is perfectly fine. But one of the things that I'm always very eager to learn about anybody that joins as a guest is learning about how you got to where you are. So I know you're a very successful businesswoman, and you share that. And I know that you're, I think, quite young. You're much younger than my normal average guest here. So, but you're a mom. I want to learn all about that. But tell me about your younger years. Where you born? How was your childhood?
So I was born in Southern California, and I grew up down there until I was about 12 years old. And then my mom had actually transferred for work up to Seattle. So that's what brought us up here. I had a fun childhood. I have a big family. My heritage is Spanish, so the majority of my ancestors come from Spain. And so it was always very, very family focused, huge family gatherings on the weekends. And I grew up very close with my cousins who are all about 6 months older or 6 months younger than myself. I just had a great family forward, full of love and fun and laughter childhood. When we moved up to Seattle, it was kind of a shock. I was used to the 80-degree weather, and we happened to move in December when it was snowing.
Okay. Oh, boy.
That was very different. But I've been up here ever since and, really loved the area. When I was younger, one of my favorite things to do was play softball and ride horses. Okay. So I did that from probably, I want to say about 6th grade through high school. And horses are still one of my big passions. And I'd love to actually have some property one day and have a couple horses myself and have my children get into that as
nice.
Well.
That's nice. That's a nice vision. And in terms of what you wanted to be, what you wanted to study, were you always clear what kind of profession you wanted to have, or that was something that developed? Because, to become a business owner, so I always say it's a bold move and not everybody's cut for that. So take me a little bit into that, how that happened.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. That was always my big thing. I felt like I argued very well.
We have that in common, by the way. I wanted to study law, and sometimes people say, oh boy, you have been a great lawyer. I don't know if they say for something good or bad, but in any case.
I know. So I wanted to do that. And then, of course, there were times where as a young teenager, I did a little bit of modeling. And then that was my big career I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I'm 5'4", so that didn't really pan out for me. But, I never thought I would be in the industry that I am. I honestly just kind of fell into it.
Okay. And how did that happen?
So when I was younger, when I was 21, I got my real estate license up here in Washington because both my parents have been in real estate for almost 30 years, and my mom has a brokerage. And I moved to San Diego. It's actually funny. So my husband and I were high school sweethearts.
Oh,
And
that's
we
nice.
were engaged when I was 21. And it didn't work out at that time. There was a lot of stuff going on with our families. And so we ended up splitting, and I decided that I was going to move down to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I had no friends, no job, nowhere to live,
Yeah.
knew nobody. And so I just packed my car up one day and headed down there. My dad drove me down, and it worked out really well. I had a blast. I met some great people, and that's actually how I got into my first sales job.
That's amazing, because one of the things that I always highlight in this podcast are stories like the one you just said. Like, everything came down, right? And you went through it quite quickly, but you were engaged to your sweetheart, to high school sweetheart. So that's a big deal to end that engagement and say, I'm moving, I'm packing my car, and I'm just leaving. So, I applaud you that you went through it. I have a full episode of my experience with something like that, because it was so traumatic,
Oh, it is. Yeah. Especially when you're so young. And we met when I was, funny because it's so cliche, but we met when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. He was 17. He was a junior. And I literally remember he walked up to me outside my Spanish class, and he asked my name and introduced himself and asked if he could have my phone number. And he walked away, and I looked at my best friend at the time, and I said, oh my God, I'm going to marry him.
Oh,
and
wow.
She's like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, no, I don't know. I just know I'm going to marry him.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's great. When they say it. Yeah, you're right. It's a cliche, but it's great. So, and I'm going to go back to this because people know I like these kind of stories, how everything panned out. But basically, you were brave. You took a really courageous decision to go. And even when you didn't meet any, didn't know anybody, you did it. And I emphasize this because a lot of people I know, they say, oh, I'm too old to do this, or how am I going to move, or why am I going to what I do if I go to a place where I don't know anybody. And I always say, you're going to meet some of your best friends, because that's what's happened to me. Every time I've moved, I end up meeting, some of my best friends. So great. So San Diego was the one that gave you like a start on what you're doing in sales.
So what I did, I got into sales there, which was really great. And then my sister, who's 14 years younger than me, was getting ready to go into high school. And so I didn't want to miss prom and homecomings and all of that fun stuff. So I decided to move back up to Seattle. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing real estate with my mom. And I decided I wanted to get a part-time job in between closings because I've never been a person who likes working on full commission. I'm the type of person where I need to know that I have money coming in to pay my bills.
Yeah.
So I got a part-time reception position at a dental staffing company. And 2 weeks after I started, their hygiene recruiter quit. And I kind of been, kind of watching and noticing. And I talked to the owner because it was a family-owned business and said, I might be interested in trying this. And so she gave me a shot, and I ran and grew their hygiene department, which was their largest department of staffing, and was promoted up to director of business development, hired a salesperson underneath me. And I was there for a few years until I hit the ceiling. There was really nowhere else for me to go unless I purchased the business, which was not for sale. And so I moved on to a larger corporation, but that's how I really got my start. I just kind of fell into it and realized I really liked it and I was good at it. And I really enjoyed helping people find jobs and take care of their families. And so from there, I moved on to a couple other companies. And then I was with the second largest global staffing agency for almost 6 years. And I ran multiple offices and multiple teams. And that's kind of how I really got my meat and potatoes experience of it, if you will.
That's great. I mean, it sounds to me that in a way, you've been lucky that you kind of fell in the right place at the right time, in love and in work. And although you did have some challenges, because it's not everybody. Some people say I fell into this job and I hate it. It's just I made my career here. I've invested 15 years, 20 years of my life. And
Yeah.
and I have a lot of friends like that because telecommunications is such a like segmented niche kind of industry
Oh, yeah.
that knowledge you have is very valuable, and even more because it's technology is valuable for a certain amount of time. If you step aside for 2 years, 3 years, then even what you know it's already a little bit obsolete.
Outdated.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I have so many conversations with friends that say I want a career change, I want to do something different, and they feel they stuck. So that's great, and I know you are right now on full expansion mode, and that's
Yes.
part of why you were invited to be part of this amazing book and that I'm part of. And each one of us has such a powerful message, and we're trying to pass on the knowledge to other women that are starting and that are doing exciting things. So tell me a little bit more about that and your chapter. And I know you talk a lot about accepting change and adapting to circumstances. And really, obviously, you highlight the benefits of outsourcing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so for, a lot of the things, especially in this industry, and like you said with your industry, things are changing so quickly. And technology is changing, and the way people do business is changing. I mean, everything used to be always about sit down one on one meetings. And now a lot of it is via Skype or Zoom meetings. And so, one thing that I think is so important is being able to adapt to change and being able to understand that it's not always a bad thing. A lot of times it's great, and great things come from it. In this industry, I've seen a lot of change in good and bad, and that's pretty much honestly why I wanted to start my own business. I'd been doing this for so long, and when I first got into the industry, it was really about partnerships and relationships and building long-term relationships, and it started to become more transactional. So it was really more about the bottom line, how much margin can we make, whether it was charging clients more, paying candidates less, and that just it didn't sit well with me.
Mhm.
And staffing really kind of just started becoming a bad word, where when I decided I didn't want to do that anymore and I wanted to start my own business, it was really with the thought process of I want to adapt to the way that clients are doing business. I want to adapt to their business models versus telling them they have to adapt to mine.
Mhm.
So that was one thing I did, when I started my business. Is I have luckily a lot of clients that I've worked with prior who came with me, and they asked me, well, what are you going to specialize in? And I said, honestly, I don't want to specialize in just one thing, because then it really limits how I can partner with you and what I can do to help you. So I want to specialize in what you need me to specialize in.
Mhm.
And I think any good recruiter can recruit for majority of roles out there. It doesn't, each role is very different, but the functionality of it and the fundamentals are all the same. And so for me, that was something that was really important, is really just in this world of work as we see it now, not limiting yourself for what you can do for clients, but really taking a step back and saying, what can I do for you? Because that's where we're going to grow and expand.
Well, I think that's a great approach. And by all means, everything I've read about, how to expand these days, it's about paying attention to what's going on outside your company. I even interviewed someone in this podcast, and he shared how he's built several businesses from just studying what trends online,
Mm-hmm.
just the hashtags, just what people are talking
Yeah.
about. And he said, if you pay attention to what's trending out there, then the market is telling you what they need, what they want, what they're passionate about. And I had never thought about it that way, but it makes total sense. So I love that thought on not limiting yourself and just pretty much adapting to what your customer needs you to be.
Absolutely. And, I think for me, it's something that a couple of my clients have commented on and said, thank you. We've worked with these other companies, or they say, this is all we do and this is the only way we can help you, or this is our process. You have to fit into that. And it's not conducive to the way that they do business.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of tend to adopt the same philosophy, trying to adapt. And even as parents, I remember my husband and I, when we were about to have our first child, he said we have to strive for them to adapt to us rather than us to adapt to them. Otherwise, our whole life is going to be run by our kids. And we were very kind of diligent at doing that because we saw so many parents say, oh no, we don't go out because they go out at this certain time, or we don't do this. And I'm telling you, our kids have, slept next to loud music since they were really little, gone to weddings, gone to travel. I mean, everywhere. And right now, a lot of people say, "Oh, they're so easy to go to bed." I say, "Yeah, but it took some time to and rough decisions." My mom once told me that I was a bad mom because I was letting them cry themselves to sleep.
Oh
And
my gosh,
and
no.
and now she's so proud, like, oh my, they go to bed so easy. I say, yeah, remember that day when you told me. But that's definitely a philosophy that can be applied in many, many different aspects. And I know that you kind of are a firm believer that and I think this is a tagline to your company, that it's not about putting someone in the city, it's about finding the right fit.
Yeah, that's exactly, and I've said, it's funny. I remember gosh, I think like 10 years ago, I came up with that. And I thought, this is really what this should be about. It's not about, let me just find you a body that can get the work done for you. Let me actually find somebody who is going to be the right fit for skill set, for the culture of your team, for, the soft skills you're looking for. And that's one thing I always ask clients, outside of a resume, because a resume to me, it's a blueprint of someone's experience. It's not everything they've done. It doesn't show the transferable skills that they have that could, work for what you're actually looking for. And so that's one thing I always ask, what are the soft skills, and how can I find that person who, honestly, if you get 7 or 8 out of 10 check marks in your list of what you're looking for, you're knocking it out of the park. So that's always been the way that I've tried to approach my business and working with my clients, is I want to find the right fit for you, because I want you to work to me or refer me, or, have that long partnership. For me, it's really about building long-term partnerships.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I think, the right approach. And so for your company, I know you have expansion plans. You're opening a new office in California. What the future looks like?
So we opened a new office in California in October. I was super excited. It's in Newport Beach, and we are looking to, really start building our business down there. I'm hoping in the next, if I'm really ambitious, depending on how all of the economy bounces back from everything.
Yes.
In the next year to 2 years, I'd like to also have a location in Austin, Texas. They are just booming out there with the businesses all moving, and the tech businesses and hospitality. I mean, there's so much going on out there. So that is my kind of next 2-year goal, if you will. And to really, I was very, very lucky and fortunate that I had set a annual, budget essentially last year, and I exceeded that. So I was super excited. So my goal is to double that this year. We'll see how that works, because coronavirus is not helping my business right now.
No, of course, it's not helping anybody's business right now.
I know.
And then
bouncer than later.
Yes, let's hope. And but I know you're also a mom of 2 young children. How? And this is a question that we get in promoting our book all the time. And this podcast is about going back to basics, which in a way we are right now in lockdown. How do you manage that? How do you envision, being successful, keep expanding, but at the same time being that family person that it's obvious you are also from your background?
It's a tough juggling act, especially being on lockdown with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. They're going stir crazy. Mom and dad are going a little stir crazy too, I think. But, for me, it's really, I just have to sometimes just take a deep breath, and I have to really prioritize what I'm doing. This morning, my son was coming up to me and saying, Mommy, come build robots with me, because that's his new thing. He loves to build robots out of Legos.
Okay.
And, I had excited, Mommy has a call this morning, and it kills me because I'm like, all I want to do, of course, is play robots with you, right? But then, I have to say, okay, but, when I'm done, then I can make time to do it. Or yesterday, I carved out and shut my laptop off, and I said, I'll come sit down and have lunch with you. And so it's really just a juggling act of what is the most important, what needs to get done right now, what could maybe wait a little bit so that I do get that one-on-one time with them. I do have a nanny, which I've been very fortunate with my younger daughter. We kept my son out of school till he was 1 as well, and so we wanted to do that with our daughter. So she's definitely been very helpful with both kids being home and managing that. And then my husband has been home now too. So he definitely pitches in a lot and helps, keep the kids occupied if needed, or, whatever additional hands on deck that we need as well.
Oh, that's great. And I don't know if this happens to you, but to me, I always, like you, as moms, we struggle. But now that we're all in the same house, every day, it's almost like the rejection to the kids. If you have a call and you cannot at that time play with them, it's harder to manage, because normally when they're in school, I know how the day goes. And so I always make sure I leave some time when we come back from school to talk to them, before I get back into work mode. But right now, as you say, it's everything so intertwined, and they are bored, and they are, also dealing with this situation that, of course, is new for the adults. Imagine for the kids. Then I feel even guiltier, because it almost feels like we should all be watching movies together and just,
Right?
it's like the instinct is like, oh, we are at home. It's like a vacation, but in reality, it's not. And you feel the pressure that, the businesses are, not moving at the speed they need to be moving. And so it's very stressful.
No, I agree. And I feel the same way. It's yesterday I was working on laptop, and he came over and he just wanted to lay on my lap. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to work over him, because obviously he just needs that time right now.
Yeah, no, that's...
But it's very, because they don't understand Mommy and Daddy are working. They just understand, hey, I'm home. Normally I'm not here, and now you're here. Let's do stuff. So it pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, but he's pretty good about, and learning patience. It's funny that you were talking about, you and your husband and adapting, because Jeff and I had the same conversation where, he said, well, things are going to change when we have kids, and, we can't go out all the time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We can still go out and have babysitters and all this stuff. And I kind of had that same mentality of, they have to adapt to us, or we're going to be living for them all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
But it definitely is a juggling act. And it's interesting to see how they start growing up, and, as they're talking and they're learning the patience, or, you need to wait right now, or wait your turn, or so. It's a very fun but crazy age, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And apparently, for what everybody says, we have to enjoy it because it goes too fast. And everybody that has grown up kids already, they say, oh, those years. So
I know.
trying to be very aware of that, and that it goes very, very fast. So
I can't believe that, my daughter is 13 months already. I was 7 months pregnant with her when I started my business.
Wow.
I can't believe that she's already 13 months old, and, my son just turned 3. It goes by so quickly.
Yeah, my husband the other day said something, and he's Dutch, so he's very spot on, direct on some comments. Saying, our son is 9 now, and we were talking about that, how fast he's going. I say, do you realize that in the same amount of time that we've had him, he's out of the house? And that kind of put it in perspective. It's like, wow, yeah, that didn't go, that went fast. And in the same amount of time, he's already going to be an adult. So that to me is like, okay, created some urgency. Like I have to take advantage, because time does fly.
I even think about as he grows up, and, when they start dating or when they go to college, I'm like, how in the world, I know they're only 1 and 3, but how am I going to deal with that?
Yes.
Lose my mind.
That is an interesting thought. But, obviously I cannot finish the interview. I have 2 questions to ask. One, tell us about you and Jeff. After breaking that engagement, what happened? You're married.
Yeah, I know, right? So I didn't, gosh, it's so funny. So we didn't see or talk to each other for probably about 10 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
I know. And I am a firm believer, and he always makes fun of me, but I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I've always said that. And so just out of the blue, I ran into him one day. I was going to a client lunch, and I ran into him, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years. And, he came up and said hello and gave me a hug. And it was just very like shocking. But yes, so it was a shock, but it was also kind of exciting. All those feelings came back. You kind of, the memories start flooding you. And when he walked away, my client said, "Oh, who is that?" And I told her, "Oh, he's just somebody that I know." Obviously, I didn't want to get into the whole story.
Yeah.
And she goes, "He's in love with you." And I go, "What? What are you talking about?" Because that's such an odd thing for her to say. And she's like, "No, you can just tell by the way he looks at you."
Mm.
And it was just so bizarre. And then we ran into each other like over the next year, I'd say, probably another like 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then his life was transitioning, and he was married, and they ended up splitting up. And after they'd split up, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to grab a coffee? We've been running into each other," kind of a thing. And so we ended up having coffee and going to dinner, and then we were just back together ever since.
Wow, that's a great story. I mean, I believe
Yeah.
it's serendipity, it's sometimes
Mhm.
timing. And I say this also for business. I always say this. Sometimes it's about the timing of things, and something that seems perfect or that seems good, it doesn't happen when it needs to happen. But timing eventually finds its way to if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
I agree. I
Well, I'm
agree.
happy work out that way for you. And then of course my mandatory question is, what do you do when you have, like, let's say 1 hour for yourself? What makes you tick? What part of your day or any activity or reminds you, oh, this is Suzanne, this is who I am, and I love and I'm passionate about this?
That's a really good question. I feel like having two little kids, I don't have very many of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. I think, when I do have a little bit of spare time, I try to almost kind of just decompress and not think about things.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's sometimes, honestly, I will just sit in silence and play Candy Crush for a couple minutes just to kind of relax, or sometimes I will just kind of veg out and watch some of my, reality shows that my husband makes fun of me for all the time.
But you said like you like talking to people. What I try to get to is, like, it's good to be relaxed, but there are things we do. What did I do the other day? And I say, oh, this is something that I also forget that I love doing. Maybe we went for a bike ride, and with the entire family, and just I was listening to music, and I could see my kids and my husband right there. It's like a picture. It's a movie in front of my eyes. And that just gave me butterflies and made me tick. And I say, this is what life is about. It's not about our conference calls. It's not about the craziness of our days.
No, I agree. I would say, honestly, when we were in California last year, we went down for around Christmas, and we took the kids to California Adventure. And I just seeing my son, because he was very into the Avengers and Buzz Lightyear, and he got to see Buzz Lightyear, and just seeing his eyes light up for me, I was like, this is just really what it is about. It's building these memories, making these memories, and just seeing how happy he was. I think for me, that's probably what makes me tick when it comes, deep down.
That's great. Now, that's great. And I think that in the time we're living, if we can take anything positive out of this craziness, is that we are living more of those moments that I think make us tick. And I hope we don't forget about them when we move past all this craziness.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree.
Great, great. Well, Suzanne, I really wish you the best of luck. I'm honored to be on this book journey with you. I hope the audience could grasp how exciting you are, and this group of women that I've been interviewing. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on your show and to to take this journey with you and the other women as well. And, I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you, thank you. And to all the audience out there, our book, it's gonna be out very, very soon, Women in Business Leading the Way, and I will make sure to keep you posted on when you can buy it. Thank you so much, and until the next episode of Back to Basics. And until the next time.